guest on this music industry forum is Emily White. Emily is an artist and athlete manager, entrepreneur, and social activist. She's the organizer of I Voted and author of Interning 101 and How to Build a Sustainable Music Career and Collect All Revenue Streams. She's interviewed by our faculty member, Billy O'Connell.
I'd like to welcome Emily White to Music Industry Forum here at Loyola University. Emily is an amazingly accomplished woman in the music industry. She went to Northeastern University. She's originally from the Milwaukee area. She went to Northeastern University. Northeastern is sort of renowned for its co-op program, which emphasizes internship opportunities, or at least something that functions as internship opportunities, giving kids real world experience. And boy, did she take advantage of it. She worked for a wide range of music industry entities while she was at Northeastern. And further to that, she came in contact with a band that changed her life while she was at Northeastern. A band called the Dresden Dolls played on campus. She approached the front person of the Dresden Dolls, Amanda Palmer, who we all know and are familiar with as a pioneer in her own right. And they bonded, and Emily ended up going out on the road with them as a tour manager and being involved with them for quite some time. As a matter of fact, she missed her opportunity to walk in her graduation for one of the coolest reasons ever, which is she had to be at Coachella with Dresden Dolls as they kicked off a massive international tour opening for Nine Inch Nails. Emily became an artist manager, started a company called Whitesmith Entertainment, where she managed not only musicians, but also at least one comedian. And she's now in another management venture, Collective Entertainment, with a different partner, and is also managing athletes, which we'll speak about at some point. So please join me in welcoming Emily. Emily, thank you again for being here. So grateful.
Yeah.
I didn't even talk about the fact that you wrote a textbook for our intro classes that was introduced this year, which is, oh God, I'm going to do it again. Emily, because I'm going to get the words in the wrong order. I hate myself. I'm going to have to, okay. It's How to Build a Sustainable Career.
A sustainable music career.
See? How to build a sustainable music career and collect all the revenue streams.
Yes.
So that's how you know this is live. That book, the minute I saw it, you were generous enough to send me an advance copy of that book. The minute I saw it, I knew it was really relevant to our students, and that it would make an amazing companion to the Passman book because of its concreteness, its practicality, its plain English. I absolutely love the way you constructed the book by putting things in order, which I think is, I know from prior conversations is important to you. Can you speak a little bit about that? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that this is your second book, that you wrote another important book for our students, which is called Interning 101, which is a great book about how to be an effective intern and extract all the value that you can from the intern process. Not only extract, but also provide value as an intern. So Emily, where do you want to start? There's a lot.
Where do you want to start?
Well, oh geez, I also want to put a pin in talking about hashtag I voted, which is a whole other thing. So we'll talk about that too. I think I'd like to start with how come music? What was it about music that changed you, that made this happen?
I think that I come from one of the first generations, and probably one of the first generations of women that were told, do what you love. So for me, that was music. And also, like, I remember being a kid in the 80s, and not necessarily my parents. My parents are swim coaches and educators, but it seemed like all the adults would always complain about work. So I just felt like if you're going to do something 8, 9, 10 hours a day, you might as well like it.
What a novel concept.
Yeah. I don't have kids, so I don't want to tell people what to do, but the twist I would put on that advice, which actually we're doing at I Voted, which I never planned on, is do what you love that helps others. But yeah, I was ride or die music. I mean, in 7th grade, I don't like saying anything negative about artists, but like my like band that I loved kind of pre-taste in like sixth grade was Aerosmith and the Get a Grip era and all the Alicia videos. So in seventh grade, I was voted most likely to be an Aerosmith roadie, and I really did become a roadie as a tour manager.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was ride or die music my whole life. That's all I did was, buy CDs, listen to CDs, go to shows. And my parents are huge music fans. So yeah, I've just been ride or die music. And when I found out that Northeastern, I'd never heard of Northeastern, but I found out they had a music industry program on like an Oasis message board in 1998.
Wow.
I was like, I don't know what music industry major is, but that's my major. And that's what I want to do. And I researched a few other programs, but that was the right fit for me. I was on a swimming scholarship, and Boston was like a nice stepping stone city from Wisconsin to, eventually New York City, but I wasn't ready for New York as an undergrad. So ride or die music. And
wow.
Yeah, my dad suggested that I be a business minor, which I was, but I was offended because I was so music industry. But I'm glad I did that business minor because it was really helpful with accounting stuff on tour.
Yeah, it's a darn good thing. It's a nice thing. It's a nice underpinning to have, that's for sure. So you remember the first song that just blew you away, where you just felt so cool listening to it, you couldn't get enough of it? What song was that?
I don't think I felt cool, but I know I really loved the Beach Boys when I was in kindergarten.
That's a worthy target of your ardor. That's awesome.
I have very hip parents.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Beach Boys, good choice. So as you sort of nosed your way into the business, you worked across an amazing range of companies in Boston, starting with Powderfinger. You want to speak a little bit about kind of the little touch points of experience that you had as you worked your way into the industry?
Definitely. So I didn't know what I wanted to do within music, which really stressed me out. And I meet students all the time going through that. And bosses would tell me like, you're fine. And now I'm the one saying that's cool. And I mean it just like they meant it, but I couldn't, understand that at the time. So I wanted to try as many things as possible to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And then in hindsight, that was actually like the best background to become a manager, because now I have the empathy with what it's like on the other end of the phone or the email inbox, to be in that position at all those different places. So I interned at Powderfinger, WBCN in Boston, rest in peace.
So Powderfinger was promotion, right? So they did promotion and publicity as well, I think.
Little PR, but mostly college radio promo. I meet students at stuff like this who are like, oh, I get their CDs or whatever.
So Powderfinger was promotion. You worked the opposite side of the promotion dynamic with WBCN, classic rock radio station. Great.
It was alternative at the time.
At the time, it was alternative, but it wasn't. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. But if I remember, didn't we have it? Wasn't there a competing station that was really the alternative station in Boston? 100. Yeah. FNX.
Yeah, FNX. That's right.
FNX. Yeah, that's right. Then I'm sorry. So after BCN, what else was there?
So then that summer, I had the good problem of getting accepted at 2 internships, which I was like, oh my gosh, which one do I choose? Yeah. And I was able to do 3 days at WBCN and 2 days at Q Division in Somerville.
Recording studio. So another.
Sorry to interrupt. They actually had a little label, and I was on the label side, but I definitely did the studio guys as well, for sure. Okay.
So still, even another sort of color on the palette of record business experiences, right? So Powderfinger, BCN, on Q Division for the label studio side, and then what else?
Well, I will say most significantly out of Q Division, I met an artist named Ed Velasquez, who was on the label and did some business there. And one day he asked me to put together some physical press kits, and he was happy with my work. And I loved live music so much. And he was like, hey, my band's playing the Paradise this weekend. I'm playing with Letters to Cleo and Kay Hanley. Do you want to do merch? And it was like, would I?
Yeah.
So he paid me $50. That was my first paid gig in music. And awesome. I know we'll get there, but when I did get the gig tour managing for the Dresden Dolls when I was still in college, Ed was the first person I contacted because he was the tour manager for his own band. So he sent me a list of like 10 advanced questions that was the front of my binder for probably a couple of years.
That's great. So you knew enough actually to seek mentorship and to get, to go to someone for the information you needed, which is a massive tool for people that I don't think enough people pick up, frankly. I think people try to fake their way through stuff, and they ought to ask for help when they need it. Okay, so where do we go from here? So you're at Q Division. You're doing 3 days a week at Q Division, and the other days of the week at BCN. Is that right?
Yep. So
Okay.
Northeastern was on quarters then, which was greatly to my advantage.
Wow.
So that winter quarter, I did an internship at what's now Live Nation New England, but it was Don Law Company.
Don Law, legendary. Yeah.
Totally. And one thing that's really important about internships is figuring out what's not a right fit, right? So I love live music so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people book all my favorite venues. But it was really corporate, which is not bad. It just wasn't really me.
Right.
So it's awesome to figure that out when you're 20 as opposed to when you're graduating.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a good experience. They had me writing press releases, which I don't know why, but I did get a job out of that, ripping tickets and doing the guest list at some of my favorite venues in Boston. And they paid me like $18 an hour, and it felt like $1 million. And I'd let my friends in for free. So that was an awesome experience. And of course, I'm still in touch with all of those people.
And you touched on something that's incredibly important. I try to get this across to students, and nobody really gets it, I don't think, until they get it, which is finding out what you don't want to do is incredibly informative. It's not always, people use the term follow your passion, follow your bliss. I think I see students get vapor locked by that. They just get frozen, like with inaction. My passion, the thing forever. But it's like you can back into this by understanding the kinds of things you don't want to do as well. So I'm delighted to hear you say that. And I think that students would do well to understand what that means.
Yeah. And we'll get there, but well, my plan was to camp outside Marcus Russell's office in London, who still manages Oasis, until he would let me help with anything. And that ended up not being my path. And I'm just happy or successful or whatever. So I have those goals and dreams, but know that didn't work out. But Noel Gallagher did dedicate Don't Look Back in Anger to me at a festival in Germany. So that worked.
You got that going for you.
Not that stuff, but they say don't meet your heroes, but Noel's always really nice, which is freaking awesome.
That's pretty great. Yeah. No, I like that. I like the whole idea of that. And congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was my ringtone for years. This was in like 2005. And Amanda Palmer would be like, save it for when you're sad. I'm like, no. Every time the phone rings.
That's great. So, okay. So you get involved with Dresden Dolls, and you can tell this story however you wish, but you end up as a tour manager. What happened?
There was one more before then.
Yes, please.
So that following summer, I interned at VH1 Classic in New York.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I applied for I really wanted to go to New York. I applied for a bunch of internships, didn't get any of them. Got this one at VH1 Classic, was kind of like bummed I wasn't at MTV2, like helping with Radiohead concerts or something. And again, like it really is not about meeting people, but I did meet my first Beatle and Roger Daltrey there. So, and it was a television internship.
The fact is you're a geek, you're a music geek. You love music and you're working in music. So these are the perks. Yeah. Sometimes you get to meet some interesting, influential people. You get to sort of have experiences that other people don't get to have. So it's a legit thing. I love that you still can talk about that in an excited way.
But I also point that out because, like I said, I really was bummed I wasn't at MTV2, where all the things I was more interested in was happening. And then, it's like, don't be disappointed by that stuff. You're still going to get a ton of knowledge and experience and all that. And that's a television internship. It's not a music internship. So I learned a ton. We've sold TV shows, over the past decade. We're shopping one right now. I would say that's like the smallest percentage of my entertainment industry knowledge, but just having that foundation of certain vocabulary and terms and contacts definitely helps. So I had seen the Dresden Dolls play at the Boston Music Awards, I think in September. So I went back to Boston. And I loved it. I thought it was amazing. And then they played at my school. They played it after hours at Northeastern. We have a little non-alcoholic club that I guess pays artists pretty well. So keep that in mind for post-pandemic times, which is why we would get legit artists. And they were a local band, but they were certainly on the rise. So I was really nervous. Amanda was at the merch table and I introduced myself and I said, I'm studying music business. I intern at X, Y, and Z. Let me know if you ever need help with anything. And she's like, can you come over tomorrow?
So Amanda. Yeah.
Yes. But I did find out years later that, of course, she had gotten offers from fans to help, but they were fans. And I was definitely a fan, but she was like, you were so clearly on a professional path. Yeah. And that's how you introduced yourself, that it stood out to her. So it turns out she lived in this amazing artist commune that was like a 10-minute walk from campus.
Wow.
And you'll appreciate this, but this is 2003 and she lived in a home with her web developers, her music video directors. I mean, people didn't have websites in 2003 or like really make their own music videos and stuff. So it was really, it's called the Cloud Club. It's really a special place. And so I would go over there, and on one hand, it's really important for students to research everything they can about an artist or a company or wherever they're going to intern, like go to every link on the website, check stuff out on social media. So I did that. But it's also important to show up and be a blank slate as far as the tasks you're going to be given. I'm not trying to sell books, but the stuff that you're asked to do is all covered in Interning 101. So don't be overwhelmed by that. But what I'm trying to say is, and if that gets too loud, let me know. I can close that door.
Oh, no, can't hear anything. Okay, cool. As a matter of fact, I had to close door. That's one of the reasons I had to disconnect. I heard all kinds of sounds. My son's shaping a surfboard. I hear this electric planer. It's like all kinds of crazy noises. So
amazing. Awesome. So the first thing Amanda asked me to do is, so she was running the band at the time. There was no team or anything. So she was booking, doing PR, answering fan stuff. And this sounds quaint to me now, but she was sending like 100 emails a day and has a very aggressive style of keyboard play. So she had started to develop tendinitis. And so the first thing she asked me to do is take dictation. And so you can look at an interning task and be like, well, this sucks. This is like not what I'm getting a degree for. Or you can be like, okay, that's what you need help with. And I did it well. I did it with joy. And like, turns out there's no better way to get inside your boss's head, a band's head, a business's head, a band is a business, than to take dictation. And I still know Amanda's brain sometimes better than she does, I think. Because I think it's because of that. So don't be above any tasks. And I grew up professionally with that band, did merch, tour managing, you lived into graduation day. So, but from there though, I got an internship at VH1 in London. And so, like I said, I'm a total Britpop person. That's what I'm obsessed with. And so that was my plan. And the Dresdels were getting bigger. They were going on their first bus tour in the US. I couldn't believe I had to miss that. Although I'm so glad I missed it because it was like the cheapest bus ever and broke down all the time. But I got this internship in London and the Dresdels were like, that's your dream, go do it. And when you finish that internship, we'll be here. So it was really just
incredibly generous.
Totally.
Great opportunity.
Yeah. And I was still in school. So, what are they gonna, I mean, you're right, but whatever. So in hindsight, I agree with you, but now I'm just like, I was a student. But they also did their first European tour at that time. So I was able to fly, Ryanair or whatever, and go to Germany and go to Sweden and go to different places and see them. So I had that experience abroad. I know it's pandemic times, but post-vaccine, if students are able to intern abroad, study abroad. I mean, I was just in England where they obviously speak English, and the skills that I obtained, whether it's like being fluent with different currencies, I can, seamlessly dial international numbers. Like I was teaching people in the office to do that when I was entry level who were older than me. So knowing the London tube system, right? Like as a New Yorker now, I might just think like, oh, I'll hop in a taxi or hop in a black cab and go to this meeting. And the streets in London are so windy and it's such a spread out city. It's actually faster and cheaper to take the tube. So these are basics that you learn at these internships that again, are the younger you can figure it out, the better. Yeah. So came back after that, graduated. I was at Morning Becomes Eclectic in LA with the band the spring of my senior year. By then they had taken on management. Very grateful that it was Mike Luba at Madison House. So it was just emailing this morning. And Mike said to me in that control room, he's like, yeah, and when you graduate, you'll come work for me at Madison House.
That's great. We have current ex students who are represented by Madison House right now. Yeah, a couple of different bands, as a matter of fact.
Fantastic. It's a very forward thinking company. They were doing things in the early 2000s and even late 90s that we take for granted and are super common now. Including successfully suing Ticketmaster so String Cheese could.
I was going to say, I think a lot of that came from their embrace of jam band culture. And made them the iconoclastic type advocate for that sort of an artist, and I think that's a really valuable thing that they did. They were great about that.
Yeah, and that's not really my type of music, but I'm forever grateful that I was schooled at a jam band management company, basically, because I've spent and you have too. Like I've spent my entire career building businesses around the artists and taking care of fans a very close second. And the jammy world does that arguably better than anyone. Exactly.
I think that even though I could not listen to an entire Grateful Dead album, I took so many things from them. I stole so many things from them business-wise about embracing the fan and treating the fan as a partner, not as a subject. That I cannot overestimate the value of that cultural moment or that cultural orientation, I should say. So you're out and you're tour managing Dresden Dolls, and you put together a massive amount of experience doing that. How'd the next transition come about into actual management, which is, I guess, Whitesmith was next in the CV, or was there? Okay, so what happened between?
That's really important. So I worked it out when Luba offered me that job, which, by the way, was not posted. I did not apply. I have never used my resume in my career other than when I had to put one together.
Right. Sounds very music businessy.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. So we worked it out where I would tour manage the band, and then when I wasn't on the road, I would work at Madison House. So that worked out really well because obviously artists pay the tour manager, and then Madison House paid me when I wasn't on the road. So basically, like everyone got
double dipping.
Yeah. Paid half, but it worked out hours wise and all that. So I tour managed until I was 23. I wasn't challenged by it anymore. I knew some of these venues and hotels better than my neighborhood in Brooklyn. Yeah. And it was perfect timing because Luba's business partner at the time, Kevin Morris, had just taken on Angelique Kidjo. Maybe not just taken on, but he needed help with Angelique Kidjo and Taj Mahal. So they tried to convince me to come off the road. I'm like, I don't need convincing. They're like, come here. We need time. We need help with our artists. So
they're wooing you and you're already wooed.
Yeah, I'm like, done. Yeah. So grateful to have worked for and learned from those guys. Like I said, they always put, the artist first. They always take care of fans. And so I loved my little life, worked so hard at Madison House. And Madison House was in New York at the time. They also had a New York office. So that's where I was. I ran around the shows at night. Our office manager was my best friend. It was great. But it did I was also really fortunate because this was 2006. And so a lot of people at labels were getting laid off, and I was at this jam band management company. So one day Mike Luba came in and he said, I'm moving to Miami to work for Michael Cole. And I had written, so I saw a fan come up to Amanda at a show. I was at the merch table or something, and the fan gave her a check for $300 and said, I just want to support you in your art. And maybe that sounds kind of normal now, but that was not normal in 2007 or whatever.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And she had her first solo album coming out, and I knew the label would never let us do it, but I was like, why can't we do a suggested donation, like a museum or something? Why are we limiting it to $9.99 on iTunes?
Yep.
Especially when friends and I were instant messaging zip files back and forth. That was kind of the era we were in. Yeah. So I shared that with my bosses, and Luba's like, we got to get on this is great. We got to, even though the label would never let us.
So great that it was embraced. That's lovely.
Well, I said the other boss's name. I don't usually say his name, but the other boss was like, this will never work. Go back to working on your bands. So I was kind of doing it on the side, even though I knew legally the label would never let us do it. And I remember going to bed one night, looking at my BlackBerry at the time, and Bob Lefset sent an email saying, click this. Sounds like spam, but it wasn't. And it was Radiohead's In Rainbows. So I went into the office the next day, and the Nathang boss's favorite band was Radiohead. So he was like, Radiohead stole your idea.
Yeah, vindication is a bitch goddess.
Totally. But I passed along my business plan to Bob Ezrin, who produced Floyd's The Wall, amongst a million other things. And so basically, Luba was going to be a part of this $500 million division of Live Nation called Live Nation Artists. The first signees were Madonna, U2, and Jay-Z. You know, that's turned into Rock Nation and these other things.
Yeah.
And so, so Ezrin wanted to meet me. He's like, I was 24. He's like, I need someone young that gets this stuff. And so this was in Miami. I picked up and moved to Miami. I left my, which was super hard. Yeah.
Wow.
And going into it, I was like, this is either going to be the biggest thing ever or a big disaster. If it's a disaster, it'll be a great learning experience. I really did it like grad school. I was really like the only one under 40, let alone under 30.
Wow.
And for a few months, it was like the greatest think tank ever.
Wow.
I mean, Ezrin would just be like, what do you think of this technology? Try this, do this, whatever.
That's wonderful. What a great thing.
Cool. Yeah. And so they're like, okay, well, we just did a little $1 million deal with this guy, Zach Brown. So we're going to give you Zach Brown Band because you know how to use the internet.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about country, but what are his ticket counts in Nashville? And it was 40. So we had some work to do. So I was hustling, working super hard on Zach at all levels. And then my friend, John Rasso, who is a veteran of many labels. And
was he Roadrunner? Wasn't he Roadrunner?
He was.
John Rasso?
He probably was, because
I think he was.
He has been at so many labels because he's like, I was always assigned the album after the hit.
Yeah, it's so funny. I know John Rasso was at Roadrunner. Yeah, he definitely was, because I worked with him at Roadrunner like in the 90s.
Yeah, so John has been through this, and he told me, he's like, hey, there's rumors in the Wall Street Journal that Cole and Rapinoe aren't getting along, and I was like, I'm busy. I'm busy with Zach, whatever. And he called me one day. I like slept in on a Monday. I'd flown in from New York. All the bosses were flying to LA to see Zach. And John's like, I just walked in and they handed me a severance package. And I was like, what? I was like, what do I do? And he's like, you come in and get the severance package.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah. And, I mean, really quick on that, because it's such a blip on the radar for me. But of course I was in tears and stressed and didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I just point that out, that like, you're going to get laid off sometimes. You're going to get fired sometimes. Yeah. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And quickly, Luba, being the righteous person that he is, I called him. He called me and he's like, I just landed in LA and I have 76 new voicemails. Like, what's them? I was just laid off, and he's like, you were on the special list, and I was like, well, this is happening.
You were on the special list.
Yeah, but he was he's like, we have an artist on the road. Zach's on the road. We have to do right by him. Work out of your Gmail. Work out of your cell phone. Don't worry about your rent or your groceries. Like, I'll take care of it. Wow. So long story short, because also Live Nation tried to rehire me the next day. I was like, no, maybe look at who you're, laying off before you do that. I had job offers. I was really fortunate, but Luba and Ezrin sat me down and they're like, all sides of this business. So you should move back to New York and start a management company. And there were artists asking to work with me, and they knew that. And they were also, they were blocked by a huge non-compete. So they're like, you're totally welcome to stay with us. We're going to do big things, but we can't do music for 2 years, and that's not you.
Got it.
So if you need money to start a management company, thankfully I didn't, because I had revenue generating artists that wanted to work with me.
Yeah.
So I started, it was called Whizzle Inc. for a second. I didn't really incorporate from my couch. I was stuck there in a lease, but we did get Live Nation to cover the lease. And then, partnered with a comedy manager and launched Whitesmith Entertainment in 2008.
Love it. And you've been a manager ever since. I think, I'm conscious of our time, so I want to,
it's fine.
Okay. I mean, obviously I don't want to assume. I want to talk a little bit about, I want you to be able to speak to management since Whitesmith. And kind of where, you made an allusion the other day in intro that I thought was interesting. You're talking about potential retirement from a piece of the business, which if you care to speak about that, I'd love to hear about that. And I also want to get to I Voted. And I want to talk about your feelings about mindfulness in the music industry. We also have 3 questions that are here. So however you want to work all this stuff in, let's go. Let's do it.
Great. Was the first one about
management since the formation of Whitesmith?
Yeah, it was great. We had an awesome time. We worked in music and comedy. We managed, Carrie should take credit for the comedy stuff, but I worked on all the comedy albums. But on the comedy side, we managed Margaret Cho, W. Kamau Bell. We had writers on John Oliver. The music side was always super strong. I was on a swimming scholarship. My parents are award-winning swimming coaches. My grandfather's in the Swimming Hall of Fame. So that was not a part of my life in my 20s at all. In fact, I wanted to get away from it and just be music stuff all the time. But there was this really incredible athlete named Anthony Irvin that won a gold medal in 2000, retired at 19 and retired, which is young for a guy, and retired very abruptly to play in bands and travel the world and cover his body in tattoos and take psychedelic drugs and do things that probably most people in their 20s do, but not always swimmers, which I could say I know swimmers. And pretty much any Olympic swimmer anyone's ever heard of goes until they get knocked out. Because I think making the U.S. Olympic swim team is the hardest sports team in the world to make, and I'll spare you why. But in particular, we're so deep as a country, and it comes down to Congress. So Anthony,
no pun intended, I would imagine.
Yeah, totally. So Anthony won a gold medal in 2000 and then reemerged in 2012 and made the U.S. Olympic team.
Wow.
I know. And I was like, who's that good that takes a decade off to like smoke cigarettes and play in bands and stuff? And then reemerges with these like sleeve tattoos and this Rolling Stone feature and like following cool bands on Twitter. And I was so fascinated by the whole thing. And so I emailed into his website after London. He got fifth, and I would rarely say this about an elite athlete, and he swims the 50 free, so everything's got to be perfect. He had the worst start I've ever seen in my life, and I was like, he's only been back in the water for like a year. He's just got to work on his start. That's like the coach's kid in me. Yeah. I do think if he had won a medal, because he was such a media darling, he'd be with CAA or whatever. I emailed into his website when he was done competing in London. I'd never done anything like that. I said, this is me and my company. This is my background in the sport. I have a bunch of ideas for you. I don't know if you have representation, but let me know if you want to set up a call or a meeting. And he's like,
which by the way is an indicator as to whether or not to accept management. Do they have ideas?
Yeah.
If the manager wants to manage you and has no ideas, run. That's
totally.
I can't think of a better criteria for management.
Well, you'll love this. So he writes back and he says, you had me at the word Odyssey. I'll be in New York, in a few weeks, and I'd love to sit down. So we do. And he said yes pretty quickly, which was kind of crazy because I have this deep family background in it, but I'd never really worked in sports my first athlete night. So the first thing he says is, I want to go on the World Cup circuit and go to Asia and the Middle East and compete and stuff. And I'm just going to put the expenses on my credit card and hope I win some prize money. And it was like $10,000 worth of expenses. And I was like, well, why don't we do a Kickstarter? Like if you were a band who got a support tour or something last minute, that's what we would do. And Anthony's super like hip and well-read. And this was 2012, but still he said, what's that?
Wow.
So Kickstarter rejected it because they don't work in sports. So we did an Indiegogo campaign. It was super successful. It was like follow Anthony around the world, like winning his medals and all that. So I've always managed him like a band because that's what I know how to do. And he's the rock star of Olympic swimming. But I speak the language of the sport. So that's really important too. Pursue
to be conversant in your area. Yes. Lovely. Great piece of advice.
Yeah. Pursue your passions for sure. But like I said, it's like when a tennis player writes to me, I'm like, you don't want me managing your tennis career, because with Anthony, and again, like I feel weird saying this, but it's like I manage another Olympic gold medalist who's the GM of a pro swim team. And like she would probably say I know more about swimming than she does. And I credit my family for that. So what I'm trying to say is like, something lucrative would come up for Anthony. And I'd be like, I don't usually comment on such things, but I was like, I think, isn't that like prime training time? He's like, oh yeah, you're right. I should turn this down. So I know the flow of the season and what they're supposed to be doing when. Long story short, Anthony won the gold medal in the 50 free in 2016 by 1/100th. He became the oldest Olympic champion in swimming history, longest 16 years in between gold medals. That was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It was like having a hit song,
You're damn right.
Through the roof.
Amazing.
So, so I've expanded to 2 other swimming clients. So I only have three sports or swimming clients, but I was on with a pretty big webcasting company the other day. They're like, whoa, your swimming roster is awesome. So it's like, if you know the sport, like, you know my people. So Carrie Smith left management a couple years ago. We're on totally good terms. It wasn't financial. It wasn't personal. So I said to a protege at Whitesmith, I was like, hey, I'd love to start a new company with you. On one hand, I want it to be whatever you want. On the other, we're just moving our music and sports divisions over. So
that's so great. Great. And that's where you are now. So there is another significant thing in your life right now. And that other significant thing is hashtag I voted. So I want to talk about that. And I want to talk a little bit about wellness, some of the wellness issues that we touched on a little bit earlier. Let's just make sure to get into I voted right now, and then we can proceed from there.
Cool. So you get to hear this for the third time this week, but
it's okay. Pretend I didn't.
Less than the I voted team members or my neighbors, probably. So, so I'm originally from Wisconsin, where the presidential election was decided by 22,000 votes and change in 2016. It was decided by 10,000 votes and change in Michigan. I read that voter turnout was down in Milwaukee, where I'm from. And I was like, 22,000, that's our basketball arena. Why don't we put together a sick concert and tie in voting? And I realized if we took the concept national, we could have that much more impact. So that's what we did. We launched hashtag I voted for the 2018 midterm elections. We activated over 150 venues in 37 states to let fans in on election night who show a selfie from outside their polling place. A ton of just amazing national acts performed. Billie Eilish, Jim James, Living Color, it goes on and on. Got all this great press, and it was just myself and an intern working on it. It was just an idea that caught fire. So now we've pivoted, if that's a word, under the pandemic. And we've been
I maintain that's a word.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We've been inviting artists to perform via webcast. Fans can access the stream by RSVPing with a selfie at home with their blank mail-in ballot or from outside their polling place. If they're not 18 by November 3rd, they can RSVP with a video letting us know what election they will be 18 for and why they're excited to vote. And if they're not a U.S. citizen, they can RSVP anyway. Instead of just getting artists that we hope people will like or that we think that they'll like, we partnered with Chartmetric, and we've been using their data to invite the top streaming artists in and or from each state.
That's great.
We're not funded, so we're focused on 20 swing states, battleground states. And we've confirmed roughly 500 artists to date. Which, amazing. Although it's under crappy circumstances, it makes I Voted the largest music festival of the year. And I guess we're going to smash the world record for the largest single night digital concert in history.
Bravo.
All in support of voter turnout. And so we're a 100-person volunteer team. Our executive team is 100% women and non-binary. Our booking team is over 70% women, non-binary, and people of color. That's a first for the industry until someone tells me it isn't. And I'm just blown away with the level of folks volunteering their time on this team. And I'm also really inspired by all the students helping out as volunteers as well.
Amazing. It's a great initiative. It's going to be a big night, and congratulations on pulling that all together. But more importantly, thank you for pulling that together. It's a huge service to be doing, people, to make sure that people vote. I have a couple of questions from students that were submitted. One of them touches on the area that I want to get into with you. Naz Harrison asks, how do you stay calm and secure in the cutthroat world of the music industry?
Yeah, I love that. Well, calmness, I think that comes from taking care of yourself. Not that I was always the best at that by any means, but I'm huge on sleep. I prioritize sleep, and anyone I preach this to that listens, it changes their life. Like, not to be dramatic, but it's true. Yeah. I exercise every day, and that is mostly for mental health and mental wellness and staying calm. It's like, I can't swim as much in New York City during the pandemic, but I used to swim every morning and sometimes scream underwater and just get my rage out. And it's like, I'd rather do that than be frustrated with a team member or something.
Yeah. So, it's important to get the rages out when you can.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then, I eat super healthy. I hydrate. I mean, not sound like the lamest person ever. I don't drink anymore. But meditation is my other secret weapon. And I would open all my NYU classes with a meditation and saying this is really important to me personally, but it's also the best life hack and work hack ever. Yeah. So I do a 5-minute meditation. It's not anything to overthink, just focusing on the breath. Before I sit down to work, before I talk to you, before I write a big email, before I, do a big call. So that's really important. And then the secure question, I've never gotten that question before. What a great one.
Yeah.
I'm really confident in what I do because I've mastered all this stuff. So it's really important to
because why? Because you've put in the hours.
Yes.
Right. I mean, forgive me for interrupting, but there is the follow on, right? It's not, you didn't magically master. You put in the hours, you did the grind. And I
didn't skip any steps.
Right.
Like it's a rung on the ladder situation. And I remember a journalist saying to me like, hey, I just met this, aspiring tour manager. Would you mind talking to her? And I was like, yeah, of course. And she said, I guess I'll suck it up and do merch for a while. And I was like, suck it up. Like, I love merch. Like for so many reasons. And so, it's really important to master that stuff. And, anyone who will run a company will tell you like, it's not glamorous. I wonder if my team respects me for this and I'm talking that 100-person I voted team, or it drives them crazy. Like, I mean, our COO has said, she's like, you don't miss a thing. It's like, if an email doesn't get responded to, like by an intern or whatever, the next day I'm like, hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So it's not as glamorous as people think. In fact, when people ask me my favorite thing about my job, it's that I control my time. And that's not like, the cool answer, but it's cool to me. So the being secure thing, I am confident in what I do because I've mastered this stuff. However, when there's something I don't know, I am the first to ask. Like, I have no shame. I've even had like high level colleagues be like, I love them. Like, cause it could be something really obvious. I'm like, I don't understand that. I don't know that term. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I love that you say that. You know?
Yeah. The smartest people are not afraid to say like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Like, could you, and I've had brilliant people say to me, explain that to me as if I was 5.
Yeah.
Like it's a hugely valuable thing to be able to do. And I can't overstate that to anybody. So, that's a great answer. And thank you for taking the time to do that. I have one other question from,
one quick thing to add to that.
Yeah.
Push past your comfort zone, which you referenced in the earlier talk, push past your comfort zone ethically, of course. But I used to be, I mean, again, I'm like a jock kid from a sports family. So I was like, I thought venues were so cool. I was so intimidated, like I remember like helping out at those first Dresden Doll shows, like, oh my gosh, I'm like, how do I wrap a cable? Like, what am I doing? And then again, those places became second home. So you just have, I was in tears on that, first week of the 9 Inch Nails tour. Like, the production manager for 9 Inch Nails is like really quick on that. Like we show up, it's like, it's like Brian Biglione, me, and our sound part. We're just like these 3 little people, and they're just this huge crew and everything. And it's in the rain outside of the Fillmore in San Francisco, and we like knock. And this English production manager comes out, and he's like, "Where's your banner?" And I think I have the right answer. I'm like, oh, it's in Colorado getting licensed and fireproof, so we're going to pick it up 3 shows in. And the first thing this guy says to me is, Trent's not going to be happy about this. Like, I'm dealing with that. There's a new business manager asking me for, like, upset with me because I don't have spreadsheets, So you just have to do the work, push past it, because within 3 years, I wasn't challenged by that stuff anymore, and I had mastered it.
Right. Yeah. Everything uncomfortable gets comfortable. And sometimes those really, what seem like the most hostile environments, I think they end up becoming the homiest.
Totally.
Because you've worked out a way to be comfortable in what is an unfriendly situation or an uncomfortable situation. One more question for you, and this will be our last question.
Okay.
It's by Angel Gregorian. She says, I have a question for Emily. What sustains the drive which pushes you in so many directions? You've been successful in vastly different areas. Is there a similarity or a single point, such as managing, which makes you inclined to all of them? Or did you fall into your most loved fields all at once or at different times? And how?
Well, when you thanked me for doing I Voted, my response is, I can't not. So I wouldn't wish the entrepreneur's mind on most people.
Right.
I can't not do this stuff. And I know it sounds like I've done a lot, and I have, but I wasn't doing it all at the same time.
Right.
And it's like, right now my life is I Voted. The new book is doing really well, so I'm happy to do speaking stuff or promo around that. But those are my 2 main things. I mean, I am ridiculously fortunate that my management clients are like, go work on I Voted. Don't worry about us, right? I mean, never like,
I don't know if I take that correct. If I take that well.
Oh my gosh. But I do have, great, my business partner is now I Voted CMO, but I have a great day-to-day manager. Like, everybody's, working together. So yeah,
it's handled.
It's not like, and again, like, when we started Whitesmith, people used to be like, oh, that's so forward thinking. You do music and comedy. I'm like, I was laid off. Her boss was kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
then I would get the same comments about sports, like, oh, I've always wanted to have a sports division. I'm like, I'm the kid of swim coaches. That's my, no pun intended, that's my lane. You know,
Well, I don't mind sharing. Like, my son is a pro athlete. My youngest is a pro surfer, budding, developing pro surfer. And I reached out to you to say, Emily, like, what's the deal with athletes? Like, what do I need to know that I don't know? And you're like, oh, you already know everything that you need to know. It's the same as it is with a rock band. It's the same as it is with a musical artist. And that message I repurposed so many times in my classes. I said, I told the same story. Like, oh, I thought it was this big mysterious thing and there's a whole other domain and what should I do? No, it's that wash, rinse, repeat routine of connecting with people on socials, of collecting data, of telling the story, of creating this facility between artist and audience, for lack of a better word. Understanding the business to business connections need to be developed right alongside the business to consumer or fan connections. It was a duh moment for me. That wasn't duh. It was a brilliant piece of advice. And I think it's one of your innovations. I think that you basically correlating it to this very simple thing is a very powerful innovation and something that is important to have done.
Thank you. And quickly, Anthony Irvin is our first athlete who's a part of I Voted. He's going to do an exclusive video message on election night. Mostly cool. That's the main thing he's been talking to me about this year. And I was like, do you want to be our first athlete doing something? And then we could ask some NBA guys and stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'd love to. So
that's awesome.
Try all this stuff. But again, it's something I know and love, and then I make sense of it.
Yeah, which you're very good at. And thank you for doing that too, because we need people like you in this business. And most importantly, the young women that we have in this program need phenomenal examples of exceptional women, and you're one of them as well. And so thank you for setting a great example, for being a point of reference for the people in this program. It's a huge, huge thing. So I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. Emily White, everybody, you can, I'll supply you guys information on how you can apply to be a part of I Voted concerts. There is a need for artist liaisons. I will send you 2 email addresses where you can send your resumes if you want to do that. You are well supported in that, but it's a great experience for anybody who wants to be a part of it. So I urge any of you who want to be a part of I Voted concerts to shoot your resume to be a part of that, to be an artist liaison. But in any event, thank you so much, Emily, for all the time you've given us this week. 2 intro classes and forum, above and beyond. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful.
So my pleasure. Anytime, Billy.